Ghostwire Tokyo is an action-adventure RPG game that I genuinely and truthfully forgot about until I was approached about reviewing it. With all the other releases and tons of things coming out in the last 2 months, it just completely slipped my mind. But after looking into it a lot more, I decided that it'd be worth the effort and dove right on in. That isn't to say I wasn't interested in it originally. When it was shown off in 2019, I think it was, at E3, I was definitely hit with curiosity and wonderment at the idea of a modern day ghosty Japan-y adventure. This was especially true since the developer, Tango Gameworks, made one of my favorite game series of all time, The Evil Within, which I reviewed back on the Angry Joe Show. So then, was it worth the time, worth the price, another banger like the previous series that I love so much? The short answer is yes, but let me break it down for you. Ghostwire's story starts off with you playing as the main protagonist, Akito, getting absolutely shreked by a car accident. You very quickly realize that bad stuff is going down as everyone's getting hit by fog and vanishing from reality. You avoid this, however, by being possessed by the spirit of an individual only known as KK, who, while having his own plans, allows you use of supernatural powers and abilities. People don't just completely vanish, however, and it's quickly shown that their souls are being ripped from their bodies under orders of a mysterious individual known as Hanya, thrusting Akito into a plot that he can't get away from, needing to unravel and stop the evil that's technically killing everyone in Tokyo. First off, I'm going to get this right out of the way. I think genuinely Ghostwire Tokyo is the most photorealistic level of graphics game I've ever played. Full disclosure, I'm running on a 3090 with an insane processor, and my PC isn't really standard by any fair, but even with that in mind, this game blew me away when it came to graphics. Don't get me wrong, mostly every single AAA game these days has great graphics and cool effects and high fidelity things, but this game really sets the bar higher than the others. With RTX on and everything cranked to ultra, I genuinely felt as if I was looking at photos of a cityscape, and I found myself constantly looking at my environments and just appreciating the amount of detail they put into the world. Also, hands down, Ghostwire has some of the best water effects I've seen in a game to date. I found myself standing still and simply watching the rain and seeing how it behaved because it was just so incredibly pleasant to stare at. There were times when I straight up thought I was just using Google Maps' walk around mode, as some of the scenes laid out were so incredibly real looking that I just couldn't comprehend it was in a game. The textures are just so good and are all incredibly authentic, with clear inspirations taken from actual and real Japanese products, billboards, and themes inspiring them and making them feel like an actual thing that would be in an actual city. Couple just the sheer visual porn, I guess is the phrase, of the world with the stunning effects, kill animations, voice acting, which is really good, by the way.
ね、もしかして迷子に優しいのって警察官だったから？
うん、放っておくと体がムズムズするんだよ。それと優しいんじゃねえ。職業病だ。
And oh my god, I don't think I've played a game that tingled my senses like this in a very, very long time. Speaking of voice acting, the two main protagonists, Akito and KK, are awesome. Their dynamic is good, and the two going back and forth at one another at all times feels real. I never get old of their prattle, with KK seeming like a dad at times over basic everyday things. An example would be you go into a gas station and buy a few snacks, and KK responds with a "Don't spend all our money, we need that." Do something dumb like jump off somewhere and get hurt, get a disappointed sigh. There are so many superb one-liners and conversations. It was such a breath of fresh air compared to other recent RPGs in the last few years.
地下鉄の中を歩いたのは初めてだよ。
俺は仕事で何度かあるぜ。
国の番犬ってやつか。
そっちじゃないな。化け物退治の方だよ。
また妙な現象が。
歓迎されてんだと思え。
もう少しおとなしい歓迎がありがたいよ。
Also, on related note, you can pet the dogs and cats in the game, and the shopkeepers are floating yokai cats. I mean, I was entirely surprised that animals in general have a lot to do with the game, and without spoilers, I can tell you that they're important in a lot of quest lines. The main story itself is really solid. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and the total time you'll spend on it will be around 12 to 15 hours if you're just doing the story. It was satisfying and overall very well put together. No complaints on my end, but I really can't go into it more without spoiling some really big plot points that are incredible to witness yourself personally. So, Ghostwire has a lot of your typical RPG mechanics. You get XP from killing bad guys, side quests, story missions, and getting collectibles, which then directly translates into skill points. These skill points are of course used in a skill tree, improving various different abilities and character actions in-game, improving your ability to kill bad guys, to do side quests, and to get collectibles in a never-ending loop. The upgrades themselves are all fairly decent, with none of them being offensively bad, but none of them really being mind-blowing either. They're your basic spend skill point, hold more arrows, and spend skill point, charge attacks faster fare, but that's not bad, as it works really well with how combat flows in practice. You've got your inventory management, which is incredibly well detailed as far as descriptions and pictures of foods and general items go, with different types of foods even giving you buffs. On top of that, you have a character customization area with costumes, clothing, and general accessories unlocked during gameplay being available for you to change at any time you feel like it. I appreciate the detail of some of the outfits. They're actually super cool, with the later ones having animated effects when you're out and about doing specific things. None of these require much effort to get either, with most rewards coming clothing-wise from side quests. There's charm bracelets that you get later on in the game, another part of the customization menu, with each one giving you buffs and bonuses to specific skills and abilities that you'll acquire throughout playing. These are cool, not very in-depth or complicated, but, you know, cool, and they allow you to slightly fine-tune your playstyle to your liking. Combat in Ghostwire is solid. It involves you fighting various different spirits and enemies through the use of ethereal weaving and general archery, with weaving involving different elements of various uses. You've got your water weaving, your fire weaving, air weaving, etc., kinda like Avatar, with each one being good at a specific task. Water weaving, for example, is very shotgun-like in its use, with the upgraded versions having the ability to blast multiple enemies at a time. Fire weaving, on the other hand, generally involves a massive single target damage shot, or charging for a huge explosion to stun and kill lesser enemies with one go. It's super satisfying to watch the hand animations and the effects, especially the default finger gun, a finger bang if you will, reminding me of Yu Yu Hakusho while I ran around and finger gunned enemies down. Also, yes, for the record, I know what finger banging is. There are, of course, finisher animations in Ghostwire, generally requiring you to do enough damage to enemies to expose their cores and then rip out their insides and kill them without having to do the remainder of their HP. Each enemy has a custom finisher animation, both melee and range from what I've seen once you unlock them, with some enemies taking multiple finishers to bring down. Boss-like enemies typically have the coolest executions, and I found myself doing them non-stop just because I liked seeing it. Each weaving art has ammo, which you can replenish by destroying said cores or sending various nether-touched objects back to the realm they came from. It never felt punishing or bad, and I liked how it made me switch between the styles a lot. The bow is a bow. There's not much to say about it. If you want to play a stealth archer, you can, as headshots generally instant kill, and it just feels like a bow. It's a bow. You've played Skyrim. It's a stealth archer. It's a bow. There's a supercharged Ghostwire mode, and I'm pretty sure that's where the name comes from, something you unlock later on in the campaign. Basically, it's a meter you charge by ripping out enemy cores, with Akito and KK getting perfect synergy and really unleashing their power. It causes a giant shockwave that stuns enemies and then increases your damage overall, making it easier to rip out cores and to defeat difficult enemies. It wasn't necessary for most of the game, but it was fun, and there are different ways to utilize it in the later parts of the story. I do want to mention that after about 10 hours or so, the combat does begin to get dull, with fights feeling a little samey and really just feeling like something you want to get through as fast as possible. I know a lot of fighter RPGs suffer from this same problem. Yakuza is a good example, where once you've beaten up 100 groups of enemies, it really just doesn't hit the same way from that point. It's not a huge issue, but it did become obvious. I'm not sure how they could have fixed it, but it absolutely became a little lackluster as time went on. The open world has a lot to do and many activities for you to get distracted by non-stop while attempting to complete the main story. You've got spirits to collect, secret collectibles to find and sell for money with lore attached to them, lore objects themselves, some case files. There's a lot. Honestly, too many. I think my biggest complaint overall about Ghostwire generally stems from how many things are on your screen when you do a scan to locate nearby interests. There's too much visual overload with things to collect. Too many ghosts, too many ammo items floating around, too many food items, too many cats and dogs. There's just too much. It's just total overload, and it becomes tedious to see, as I really only want to collect so much stuff for so long, you know? I think I collected spirits and pots and stuff for about the first 6 hours and then completely stopped. Sure, I missed out on XP, but it was just too much, and I just wanted to ignore a lot of these things existed at a certain point. It's like Assassin's Creed level of stuff to grab, but on crack, with nearly every single rooftop and every single alley having things to go grab, and most of them not being unique in any way. Maybe some people love the non-stop OCD fueled collection and gathering of everything to this degree in a game, but I definitely don't. And I could say it detracted hard from enjoying the world when I'd scan and my brain would explode. The side quests, though, on a positive note, are incredibly awesome. They show up when you cleanse Torai gates, a game mechanic that allows you to explore more, and are easily accessible at all times. They're all fully voice acted, feature special areas, and have cool rewards tied to them as stated earlier. Some of the best outfits in the game come from random side quests, and none of them ever felt too much. I can genuinely say I did 100% of them. Ghostwire has so many of them to offer, and I can't say I've 100% of the game in years. I think a lot of the charm with the side quests comes from the main two characters talking and bantering with each other. More to say what I said earlier, and the side quests just let you get to know them so much better. Overall, everything said and done, you'll get about 30 hours out of Ghostwire if you're not just rushing through and trying to beat it as fast as possible. It was a generally positive experience for me, and honestly, I felt it was worth the time to play through and review. The game never crashed or had any issues like that either, and with only a few annoyances impeding me along the way, it's going to be one I remember positively for a while to come. I'm personally curious to see if any DLC comes out of it in the future, as there's definitely room for it. As far as final score goes, we're debuting a new scoring system on the channel. There will be a breakdown at the end of every video for each individual category, followed by a final score I dictate, not necessarily tied to the average of the individual scores. I figured this is something unique that a lot of channels don't do, and it can really help me summarize my thoughts, so here you go. Gameplay is a solid 7 out of 10. Few issues, nothing major other than the collectibles. Story, a solid 8. I have few complaints about it, but it's nothing that I'll quote to friends or really talk about forever. Graphics go hard at a 10 out of 10. For real, they're nuts, they're insane. Audio, solid 7 out of 10. Good, but nothing crazy, and I never eargasmed. And value, a solid 8 for the price of $60. Not 70, 60, and you get a lot of play out of it. With all this in mind, my personal final score for Ghostwire Tokyo is going to be a high 8 out of 10. And a game I could totally suggest you pick up if you're into fast-paced action combat RPGs. It's a good one, and I hope we get a sequel provided this one does well enough. Anyway, that's it for this review. Let me know what you personally thought of the review in the comments, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on this bad boy. Remember, new channel, new struggles, and every single comment, like, and sub helps tremendously. Next on the agenda should be Tiny Tina's, so expect that. And like I usually say, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!